What is going on, everybody? It is Friday, December the 24th, and that means, of course, it is time for my News Radar. So let's start this episode off today by addressing the fact that, yes, it is December the 24th, and that is Christmas Eve. So whatever holiday you do celebrate or don't celebrate, whatever it is you're doing right now, I just hope that you do have a good one. I hope that you enjoy some time with your family. Hopefully everybody's being safe and so forth. But again, just have a great holiday, whatever it is that you do celebrate, and enjoy that time, hopefully off work and with your family. I will not be posting a video tomorrow as it is Christmas Day, and I don't think anyone would want to watch it anyways. So I'm going to be enjoying time with my family rather than posting content, and then I'll be back on Monday as usual. So let's jump into the news from there. This first article here I did see on Windows Central, and it's just really, really funny. So you guys all know what Cortana is, and I don't necessarily mean the AI character from Halo, which, fun fact about me, never played any of the Halo games. Don't have any interest in them. Send me some hate in the comments, I guess. But not that Cortana from Halo, but Cortana, the thing that was on your Windows phones and on Windows 11. Apparently, from this headline here, Steve Ballmer used to be the guy at Windows, apparently wanted to name Cortana Bingo before leaving as Microsoft's CEO. And like, this isn't like a real news story, really, because it's not really news. It's more just amusing to me that, like, I mean, I guess in the grand scheme of things, right? Like, Google's that's a weird word. That's a weird thing to name something. I've talked about the Nintendo Wii. Like, you guys remember way back when the Wii was going to be called the Revolution? Like, they came on stage, I think it was at E3, and they unveiled it and had this little wand joystick, or this little wand controller, and the console was itty bitty, and they said it's called the Revolution, and everybody was like, wow, what a cool name. I was, young at that point. What was that, like 30 years ago? So like, I was young and I thought it was really cool. And then eventually they said, actually, it's going to be called the Wii, W-I-I, Wii. And everybody was like, what are you talking about? You can call it a Wii? What a crazy, but over time, you get used to it. Google sounds normal. Wii sounds normal. So I guess Bingo would have gotten there as well. But it hits the ear in a really wrong way. And when you compare it to Cortana, Cortana sounds cool immediately. That's immediately a cool name. Bingo, not a good name. And they do go on to talk in this article about how Cortana was meant to, or I guess what was going to be Bingo, did try to get out front of the, digital assistant thing, right? They were talking about how Siri was very reactive. You had to ask it questions to then get a response. Well, Cortana was meant to kind of be proactive. And you see Google doing a lot of this now. But ultimately, between Siri and the Google Assistant, they just really weren't able to dig out a niche for themselves. And Cortana is largely not something anybody thinks about or uses anymore. It is now, of course, baked into things like Teams and Outlook as a productivity tool rather than an assistant to compete with Alexa, Siri, and Google Assistant. Interesting to me that Alexa managed to find a niche, but Cortana did not. Cortana just really, I don't know anybody that uses Cortana anymore. I know people that used to use it and liked it, but they don't really use it anymore. I think it's kind of moved on. And they do also talk here about how, anything that was AI or machine learning started being branded as Cortana. So then eventually the brand got diluted and it never really had a chance to reach the masses. Now that actually is kind of an interesting way to think about it as well. Who knows? As they say here, perhaps Ballmer was right. Maybe Cortana failed as a consumer AI because it was shifted to being a productivity helper in Teams and Microsoft apps. If he had his way, maybe people would be saying, hey, Bingo, instead. Very, very interesting to think about. Still think that's probably a bad name, though. Now, sticking with the world of digital assistants just a little bit longer, one of my favorite features of my last several smartwatches has been the ability to trigger and use the Google Assistant. Everything I have in my house, all my lights, a lot of things in my house are Google Assistant enabled, and I have routines set up and all sorts of wonderful things like that. And I love to be able to simply grab my watch, press a button, and then begin speaking to that Google Assistant and to trigger these things. And it works really, really well. But apparently on the upcoming Pixel Watch, which I've talked about several times already on this exact video series, this Google Assistant is actually going to potentially be something next gen, something far better than what we have on current Wear OS devices. So as they see here on this 9 to 5 Google article, one of the things that they've been doing on Pixels since the Pixel 4 is that the assistant is actually processing your speech on the device itself rather than having to send it out to the cloud, to those servers, and then bring it back, which makes it really, really quick. And I think if you've used a Pixel device since the Pixel 4, compared to a normal Android device, you're going to see that difference. It is far, far faster, and it works exceptionally well. Maybe that is what's going to be happening with an upcoming Pixel Watch. And granted, it's not like Google Assistant on these current smartwatches is altogether slow, just like it's not slow on your normal smartphone of choice, but it's going to be potentially much faster on this watch than on any other watch. And as someone who uses Google Assistant all the time to do all manner of things, that extra speed would be pretty nice to have. They also have some news here about the fact that it may be using an Exynos chip, which is really, really interesting. Obviously, Snapdragon has been the ruler of these sorts of watches for a long time, but as we see companies like Samsung making their own chips, of course, Apple making the M1, all these ARM chips blowing up everywhere, it's really interesting to see an Exynos chip be potentially what this Pixel Watch is going to be running. But I guess it's not all that crazy because they've got this partnership going with Samsung now, right? Well, where Samsung's taking Tizen, their watchOS, and Wear OS, which is obviously Google's stuff, and they're kind of melding them together, right? And the Galaxy Watch 4 was the front runner for that new dual branded sort of initiative, that cooperation. And of course, that Exynos is what is in that smartwatch. So effectively, the Pixel Watch may just be a Googleified rebrand of what Samsung just did with the Galaxy Watch 4. All of this stuff is very interesting. We've been waiting for a Google Pixel smartwatch for a lot of years. I cannot wait to see what this thing looks like and if it's going to be able to tear this Mobboy TicWatch Pro 3 Ultra off of my wrist when it comes out. That does remain to be seen. But I do want to know from you guys. I've talked about assistants a lot here. Do you use Google Assistant? If you do, how much do you use it? If you don't, Siri, Alexa, what is your assistant of choice? Or you have any kind of privacy concerns? What is your thought, your take on these digital assistants and how you use them? Let me know in the comments down below. I guess I have to address the MKBHD Smartphone Awards of 2021. So to end this episode of News Radar, we're going to watch and react to Surface Duo 2's appearance on this award show because I'm seeing this in my comments and on Twitter. You guys are relentlessly, have you seen it? What do you think? Da, 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 da. So we're just going to do it. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think about what he's saying here because obviously MKBHD did his quick Surface Duo 2 video when it first came out. He really didn't like it. I think he gave I think he said the camera was like a 3 out of 10. I think he said the original camera was a 1 out of 10 and this is a 3 out of 10, which I think is a little uncharitable. But I don't think what he has done or what he has said is nearly as bad as what some other people have done. So let's watch this right now, and I will kind of just give you my thoughts on it. So let's let this start playing here. Bust of the Year, Surface Duo 2.
The next category, the award you don't want to have to give, but hey, I'm giving it anyway. It's the...
You don't want to have to give... Is someone holding a Marquez, if someone is threatening you, if someone is physically threatening bodily harm to you off camera, in your next video, maybe give us one of those so that you don't have to make segments that you don't want to have to make on your YouTube channel.
Bust of the Year. Basically, the worst phone to come out this year. Maybe not the worst overall phone, actually, but just the phone that shouldn't have happened the way it did. I've given all kinds of different phones this award, whether they launched at the wrong price, or had awful marketing, or were just bad phones in general, bad builds, whatever.
So if he's saying Surface Duo 2 is the phone that most shouldn't have launched the way that it did, I could see that argument. It should have launched as it is now after the December update for me than how it did launch, which was pretty good, but this is really good now. So if that's your reasoning, I could maybe get there with you, but let's see what he says.
Generally, like I said, it's kind of hard to go wrong with a lot of the stuff on this desk, whether you're looking at camera quality or battery or value. This is part of the thing about living in the world of smartphones is there's so many good ones to pick from. But I have to give a bust of the year. And because I give a bust of the year, I have to give it to the, what is it, $1,500 Surface Duo 2. It's the Microsoft Surface Duo 2. So I remember when the first one of these phones came out, and it obviously had one of the sweetest hinges, which is a really nice piece of hardware, one of the sweetest back folding hinges of any phone we've ever seen. And so there was a little bit of hope that it might be amazing. And maybe the second one would be amazing because they didn't have cameras, and I don't know, there was just a bunch of bugs with the software, but we'll give it some time. They launched the second one. It's more expensive than the first one, and it's worse.
So it is more expensive than the first one, but we have to keep in mind, I think that people like really underestimate the engineering that it takes to make something like Surface Duo and Surface Duo 2. Like, I think that people think it's trivial to make a device that is this thin but fit all of the phone components into it, and to split it in half and to get data moving across the hinges. They think it's trivial to just make this thing, and it's not. Now, do I think that this could be cheaper and that they could still make a profit on it? Absolutely, I do. Absolutely. But that's true of every phone. Every phone could be sold considerably cheaper. Everyone's making a killing on their phones. So like if you're buying your Z Fold for whatever it is now, $1,400, $1,500, they could probably sell that to you for half of that and still make a slim profit. Now, I know we get into shipping and supply channels and things get complicated from there. But I guess my broader point is that maybe half is not accurate, but it could be much cheaper than this and they could still make a profit. But when you look at the original Duo, and people complained about the battery was too small, didn't have good cameras, last gen system on a chip. So then they address that. They add, 3 new cameras. They add a brand new system on a chip. They go 90 hertz on the screens. They make the battery bigger, but that causes all of these things meant that they had to re-engineer the entire set of internals in this device. So, it wasn't trivial or cheap to do it the first time. Well, they had to do it again. So this device was never going to launch for $999. Could it have launched for $1199? Maybe, and maybe that would have been a better place for it to be. But it was always going to be expensive. But if that's a problem you have, you're like, well, then it shouldn't exist, I guess. If that's what it was going to be, they should have waited until they could do it cheaper. There's ways you could make this argument. It just kind of is what it is. It's an expensive device.
It's just not as good. And so this one,
now,
and it's worse.
It's not worse though. So this is something that, if you're going to state that as an objective fact, I don't know how you can do that. I really genuinely would be very curious as to how he's justifying the idea that it's worse. Because to me, as someone who daily drove that one for a long time and now have daily drove this one for a good while, Duo 2 is wildly better. And I actually don't know that I've ever heard anyone else say that Duo 2 is actually worse than Duo 1. This might be the only person I've ever heard say that. And I'm trying to be charitable here because I actually really like Marques Brownlee's content. He's one of the, clearly, one of the best in the world at what he does. But I don't think I've ever heard anybody else say that Duo 2 is worse than Duo 1. Maybe he'll justify this as we go.
It's just not as good. And so I'm kind of sad that it's not doing better. Like, I want to see a phone like this, which is dual screen instead of a single folding screen, work. I think it's a cool idea. But as you could tell by the review video, there's still just too much unfinished about it. The software's still not great. The camera. This
is one of those things that can happen. I've never seen this bug before. And I don't think, if you guys didn't see this, I actually just posted a video where I got you guys to tell me all the bugs you're experiencing, and I brought them to the forefront to talk about them. No one mentioned this either. So, I'm not saying this didn't happen. Clearly it did. But this is not something that's commonly happening to people. And I would argue that, grab a Pixel 6. They're having tons of bugs as well. And I also want to point out something kind of important here as well. Let's see if we can go full screen video here. See if this is legible. Can you read? It may be a little blurry here, but if you can read what that says, because it says October of 2021. That's the most recent pictures he took. So that's when it first came out. So he's using stock footage of when the device first came out. So yeah, it's got bugs, but a lot of phones have bugs. And you're also using it when it first came out, I hope knowing full well that December had a massive update that fixed a colossal amount of bugs. So I would like to assume that Mark has checked it after the December update, when my device has been pretty much bug free, other than had a couple of, the keyboard glitch, the keyboard not wanting to pop up for a second. That's about it. I would like to hope that he's checked it before calling it bust of the year. But based on that, I'm skeptical that he did.
Cameras just not very good. I mean, to have those big cameras on the back, to sacrifice the full 360 fold and still not be good cameras, there's just no way to recommend that phone to most people.
Now, I don't even really disagree with that. I wouldn't recommend Duo 2 to most people either. It's a very niche product, so I don't really have a problem with that statement.
Lots of other things on this desk. I could just hand any of these phones to most people. I would just never give a Duo 2 to anyone I really liked. Now, next
to anyone that I really like. That's a little bit of a jab there at the end. So, I mean, look, when I first watched this, I didn't really pay that close of attention, I guess. And I was like, whatever. He doesn't like the thing. It launched with some bugs and but watching it again, I am a little bit disappointed that it seems that he hasn't checked it since the December update. It's a little bit disappointing, but it's not surprising. It is a very niche product, and it's a product that, look, not everybody's going to be, this is going to sound super conceited almost, because I don't want to say that not everyone's going to be qualified to review, because of course he's qualified to review it. But it's a brand new form factor, and there's a learning curve. And I just wonder if he's spent enough time with it to really get a feel for it. I mean, on the flip side, you look at a video like I tweeted yesterday that Mr. Mobile Captain Two Phones made, where he's talking about weird phones, and he goes out of his way to mention that they've updated it and it's working much better. You can see what he says here.
Until December, when Microsoft released a large software update that finally addressed some of those issues. The Duo 2 really is faster than before, and some of those annoying bugs really do seem to be squashed.
So there's a difference there to me. Marquez says it's his bust of the year, and that's fair. Let's say he used the December update and he still thinks it's his bust of the year. He's not wrong, because that's his opinion. And I've talked about this a million times. This is an opinion. I don't agree with that opinion. And then you see other people like Mr. Mobile, who has used this December update and has come up with a very different opinion that it does seem to be a lot better. And he says in his video that another update like that, this big, this good, and he's going to be really close to saying, hey, this thing is something I could really start recommending to people. He's acknowledging that it's gotten much better. It's getting closer to that point. Marquez doesn't see it that way. So at the end of the day, no hate towards MKBHD. That is his opinion. He's fully valid in having that opinion. But I have expressed here where I would disagree and where there are other creators that also would disagree. So guys, that is all the news I do have for you today. Again, have a great holiday in the next couple of days, and hopefully a happy new year as that rolls along as well. Thanks for making it to the end of this video. As usual, if you want to see the links to any of this stuff, they are all down there right below that like button, which you can hit on your way down. I'll see you on the next one, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.